Last week, we talked about the new addition to the Louisville men's basketball team, Emmanuel Okorafor. Well, on today's episode of the Locked On Louisville podcast, we're going to talk about what to expect for the rest of the season, considering that he is immediately eligible. We'll do that and more on today's episode of the show. Stay tuned.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome into another episode of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. Today's episode brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. As always, I want to say thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. And just a reminder that the show is free on all streaming services, 5 days a week, your team every day. We mentioned on last week's episode, or the final episode of last week, the new addition to the Louisville men's basketball team, Emmanuel Okorafor. Today, we're going to talk about what should be the expectations for him for the rest of the season, considering that he is immediately eligible. We'll also talk about the Louisville women's basketball team's loss to NC State on Sunday. And at the final, in the final segment, we'll talk about or dive into a weekly mailbag. So before we do that, got to give a shout out to my guy, Kevin Parrish, L1C for the Arts, for hooking me up with some fantastic merchandise. Definitely love the Louisville Love hoodie. Go check out his website, his Twitter page. He has a bunch of different things variety-wise that he can offer, and what he can do is extremely solid. Very, very talented guy. So definitely be sure to hit my guy up if you have any needs of getting some Louisville Cardinal merch. Diving into the men's basketball, rest of the men's basketball schedule. Now you do so with a new player, Emmanuel Okorafor, 6'9", big man from Lagos, Nigeria, member of the NBA Africa Academy. Talked about him at the end of last week. Immediately eligible, sort of a addition that was out of the blue. Very, very surprising. Caught a lot of people off guard, but regardless, need to take it a little bit of a step forward. We're going to talk about what to expect, or what should we expect from Okorafor for the remainder of the season. He is immediately eligible. That's something to focus on, right? I think that you look at this a couple different ways. Number one, I think that there is no reason that he shouldn't play significant minutes moving forward. The team is 2-17. Unless they go out and win the ACC tournament, which I don't think anyone would venture out and say that that would ever be the case. But stranger things have happened, I suppose. Regardless, this season, it's all about, trying to plan for the future as much as you can, trying to stay competitive. Well, now you have guys, maybe like a Fabio Basile, a Devin Ree, Kamari Land, some of the younger guys that you're trying to bank on that potential. You have a player now in Emmanuel Okorafor that has the talent. He has the potential, 6'9" big man from Nigeria, looks solid in his limited play in the past couple months in a league that contained former Louisville Cardinals center Anis Mahmoud. So very talented players in that league, average double digits, scoring, also double figures, I believe, in rebounding as well. 6'9" with a 7'5" wingspan, 37-inch vertical. So solid physical numbers there, but raw prospect. So he will need to continue to refine those basketball skills and just continue to adapt now to the college game. So I don't think that there is any reason why he shouldn't play significant minutes, considering that there's nothing to lose here if you're Louisville. You already are having one of the worst seasons in Power 5 history. It's hard to garner up a ton of momentum heading into next season unless you start to win games. I think at this point, it's all about, trying to gear towards the future, allowing those younger guys that you're trying to bank on development with to play and work through some of those growing pains and inexperiences, so on and so forth. So I think we need to get that out of the way. Talking about, I'm not saying he has to play 40 minutes a game, but I think that he should be heavily involved in the rotation, especially when you consider the struggles that Louisville has had in the front court. Brandon Huntley-Hatfield is injured. I don't think there is an update on Brandon Huntley Hadfield with his foot injury. I could be wrong, but as of right now, it doesn't seem like there has been any concrete information. Jalen Withers, Sidney Curry haven't necessarily lived up to the hype in the preseason. JJ Traynor, Roosevelt Wheeler, guys that have shown some flashes here and there. Sure, there might be a log jam in the front court for minutes, but I think at this point you have to make it a point of emphasis to get Okorafor time on the court, significant time to where he's, not playing garbage time, not playing when the game doesn't matter, actually playing him in solid situations. So that gets me to the next point. What do we expect? It's kind of like the situation with Fabio Basili. I said back before the season, just because I said we needed to temper expectations with Basili did not mean that I didn't think he was talented as a player. I just thought that he's a player that is a project, is going to be a guy that's going to need a season or two to really carve out a role at the Power 5 level in Division I basketball. Came in late. I don't like talking about the system because currently I really don't necessarily know what that system is, neither on offense nor defense. That's just me being honest. I'm not necessarily sure where Okorafor fits into the scheme because I think people are still concerned about what that scheme is. Look, I don't think that we've understood or come to terms with the team's offensive identity since the team with Carlik Jones and David Johnson. Last year, we struggled to find it out. This year, we have not come any closer to that. So I think we need to temper expectations. I'm not sure that he's going to be a guy that comes in right away and averages double figures in scoring, over 6 or 7 rebounds, a couple block shots. I think that, at this point, we are looking for flashes of potential, looking for him to make the right plays, getting acclimated with the speed of the collegiate game. Now, granted, he has played with professionals recently, so maybe that transition would be a little easier for him, more so true freshman in college that played at the high school and AAU levels in his previous, season. So I think that, like I said, number one, he should be playing significant playing time because at this point you have nothing to lose. I'm excited to see him play, to see just how ready or how much growth he needs to have. I think he's going to be a player that's going to give you maximum effort on both ends of the court, solid in the pick and roll game. As a guy that rolls off the screens, I think that he's going to be a high effort, tenacious rebounder, which is something that unfortunately this team has not consistently had all season long. So potentially that will be a breath of fresh air. Defensively, I think it's a matter of staying composed on defense, not fouling, with going up against more athletic guys in the ACC. I think that it'll be interesting to see how he holds his own defensively speaking. I'm not necessarily worried about him defensively. I like, his length, with a 7'5" wingspan, solid on-ball defender. I think that he's going to be serviceable in that regard early on. Offensively is where the question marks arise. There's not a lot of film outside of some highlight reels for Okorafor. I think that that's kind of where I don't want to make a player comparison. I don't want to talk about what type of player Okorafor could be in the future because, simply put, I'll be completely honest, I don't know. I don't know yet. I don't like using highlight reels as a basis of founding that opinion because at the end of the day, that's only the good plays. You don't see, the mistakes, the bad decisions, so on and so forth, right? So until I see, a couple games under his belt, we'll see how that goes. I think offensively, the best thing for him, I think, is what we're going to see him, live around the rim. We're going to see him fight for offensive rebounds, try to clean up off the glass, and use his ability with his size, athleticism, strength, and length to try to assert his way in the paint, try to work in the post. Footwork is obviously going to need to be refined. Has shown the ability to hit that mid-range jump shot, but I would assume that he's a guy that lives 8 to 10 feet from the basket, at least early on. But it would be nice for his confidence to see some early shots go in from the mid-range, 15, 20 feet. So, yeah, I think that right now you have to kind of temper those expectations. Might not necessarily be what Louisville fans want to hear, but I think that that's the truth. If we see some solid moments from him, that's going to be great, especially for the future. But as of right now, coming in late, to the team, we're going to have to temper those expectations. So what to expect? We should expect him to play a lot and try to get better with each and every game. Into the second segment, I want to take a little bit of a step into a different direction, talk about the Louisville women's basketball team's loss to NC State on Sunday. We will do that here in just a second after we talk about our friends and the title sponsor of the show, LinkedIn Jobs. As a small business owner or hiring manager, you know that success in 2023 all depends on the team members you surround yourself with. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. With LinkedIn Jobs, you can hire qualified candidates more efficiently by matching open roles with people who have the skills, values, and experiences to help you achieve your goals. They go beyond resume data by using insights from your job post, company, and their 875 million member profile to put your post in front of the most qualified candidates. LinkedIn Jobs makes it easy to screen and rate applicants based on your job qualifications all on one platform. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Hey, Cardinal fans, thanks again for making Locked On Louisville your first listen every day. Make sure you check out our brand new podcast, Locked On College Basketball. Everything you need to know about college basketball all in one place. Plus, hear from big-name experts, insiders, coaches, and players. Locked On College Basketball, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Moving right on along into the second segment, talking about the Louisville women's basketball team's loss to NC State on Sunday, 63-51. The Cardinals, now 15-7, went into that game winners of their last two. Overall, they have, I think, three losses in ACC play. They're 3-6 in the ACC, a game and a half outside of first. Duke and Notre Dame tied at first, 7-1. They're 15-7. They lost to NC State, which was a very solid opportunity to pick up their most important win of the season. But it was a back and forth game. Simply put, the big takeaway is that the Cardinals just didn't make enough shots. They didn't shoot all that well at all. There was one point where they were shooting better from three than they were from the field. Only 30% from the field, 20 of 66, 33% from behind the arc, which is not a good number. NC State, 46% from the field, 31% from behind the arc. The Cardinals, 7-11 from the free throw line. They turned the ball over 12 times, had 6 assists, so the 6-12 assist to turnover ratio, something that we talked about in the past as being one of the struggles of this team, not necessarily capitalizing on ball movement and open shots, but turning the ball over a little bit too much. When you compare that to what NC State did, sure, they turned the ball over 15 times, but they had 13 assists, so a little bit of a better statistical range. Overall, just not a good offensive night for the Cardinals. If it wasn't for Chrislyn Carr in that first quarter, the Cardinals may have lost this game by even more so than they did. In that first quarter, they went down 19-13. Carr had all but 2 of the 13 points that the Cardinals had. In the second quarter, it was Morgan Jones. The Cardinals entered the halftime intermission with a 2-point lead, 33-31. Third quarter was a back and forth matchup. NC State went into the final period with a 1-point lead, and then the Louisville offense went absolutely ice cold. Didn't get their first field goal until less than 2 minutes in the game. That's something that really hurt Louisville. Just shots weren't falling. So many missed layups, rushed shots at the time. Or at times, I should say, and obviously NC State, despite Louisville being a solid defensive team, NC State did what they needed to do, and the Wolfpack ended up outscoring the Cardinals 15-4 in the final segment. Louisville, you would think, with any bit close to a quarter of the past three that you would think that maybe Louisville has a solid chance. They had an opportunity in that fourth quarter to really, behind a solid 11,000 people crowd to do some work and defeat NC State for the first time in 4 tries, or 5 tries, I should say. But like I said, some of the offensive issues that have popped up over the season proved to be very detrimental in that final period. Defensively speaking, I think Louisville did what they need to do for the most part. Boyd had 15 for NC State. She was 6 of 8 from the field. It looked like they tried to make sure that Diamond Johnson didn't necessarily score all that much. She did go 4 of 11, so they made life tough for her. She had 12 points, but she had 6 assists and 5 rebounds and 2 steals to go along with that. So, shout out to her being 5'5" and being able to rebound the way she did. They forced her to be a facilitator, and that's what she did. She facilitated at a very high rate, had some solid assists, especially in that second half. Sanaya Rivers was solid off the bench for NC State. You look at the Cardinals, only 3 players that scored over 5 points. It was the normal 3, Morgan Jones, Haley Van Lith, and Chrislyn Carr. Haley Van Lith had a very, very off night. Shot 25% from the field, actually 20% from the field. 4 of 20. She had 11 points, 3 of 4 from the free throw line, 0 of 3 from behind the arc. She had 5 turnovers. The Cardinals overall, I think that the main issues are the scoring consistencies across the board. You'll have one player step up and another player isn't able to get going. Or you have 2 players step up and the rest of the supporting cast isn't anywhere to be found. I think that was one of the issues that we saw here. Haley Van Lith struggled to get going. Granted, Chrislyn Carr ended with a game-high 16 points. She was 6 of 14, better in the first half, obviously. Morgan Jones, 5 of 12 from the field. She had 13 points to go along with 5 rebounds. But you look at the front court. You look at what Louisville was able to do in the front court. 6 points. Simply put, not good enough. When Louisville's front court struggles, you see the team get a little one-dimensional. There's a lot of responsibility that's put on Haley Van Lith's plate in the scoring department, rightfully so. Even when Morgan Jones and Chrislyn Carr score in double figures, the Cardinals struggle if the front court production isn't there. Olivia Cochran only had 2, actually she had 11 rebounds, but she only had 4 shot attempts. She finished with 0 points on the afternoon. 27 minutes, 0 points. Liz Dixon, 11 minutes. She had 4 points. Nyla Harris played 16 minutes. She was 1 of 4 from the field, had 2 points. Josie Williams, 8 minutes, 0 of 2. Marissa Russell played 1 minute. I know she's listed as a guard, probably more of a wing. No shot attempts. So you look at this in an instance of, sure, the responsibility is put on players like Morgan Jones, like Haley Van Lith, like Chrislyn Carr to score the basketball. And I think that over the past couple weeks, they've gotten better as a collective unit scoring the basketball. But still, there is a point of emphasis on getting that front court production. You look at what NC State did against Louisville today. They realized Louisville wasn't scoring inside. Granted, they missed a lot of layups as well. But they forced Louisville to, take some tough shots, some shots that they probably weren't necessarily all that comfortable taking. Sure, shots weren't falling at alarming rates, and sometimes you just have an off afternoon. But at the end of the day, man, it was an instance to where you feel like if Louisville could have gotten some production in the front court, that they would have had a better chance in this game. And I think moving forward, obviously, as the late, great Nipsey Hussle said, the marathon continues. And you have to continue to get better because you still have, a whole month of the season to go. You turn your attention now to a road stretch with Wake Forest and Syracuse. But as of right now, you have to continue to get better. And I think that looking at this situation, it's a situation to where I think that you have to get that front court production if you want to see this team take it to the next level, right? I think, at the end of the day, you see a team that is just needing to continue to get more production from the inside, like you did last year with Olivia Cochran and Liz Dixon, and you're definitely missing a player like Emily Ingsler inside. But you need to you'll get some more production from the front court, which I have no doubt that they will. They have a lot of talented players in the front court, so I look for them to take that next step. But to conclude the remainder of the show, we'll dive into the weekly mailbag segment. Before we do that, I do want to give a shout out to my guy, Brian Trent, over at thestateoflouisville.com, host of the Off the Walls podcast. He had his first live post-game show at the Granville Pub on Sunday afternoon. Very, very fortunate for him to have me in attendance along with Monique Reed, former Louisville Cardinal star, Alexis Cubitt from the Courier Journal, the guys over at Main Event, Rashawn Myers and company. Just very, very excited. Shout out to my guy, Joe Kelly, over at the Granville Pub for his hospitality and the staff over there. No better spot to check out a Louisville game than that iconic pub over near Louisville's campus. But yeah, so diving into the weekly mailbag, first question is a direct reference to Emmanuel Okorafor. Do you see any spot this season to where he may be implemented into the starting lineup? I think that that's kind of too quickly to be seen. It really just depends on how he responds on the court. I think that if he is showing some good moments, if he's continuing to look good on both ends of the court, if he is not getting in foul trouble early, if he's I think it's all about, what he's doing on the court. Obviously, the injury to Brandon Huntley-Hatfield is another aspect of this conversation that has to be monitored, because if he's out, that's another player that could be starting in that role. Right now, it's J.J. Traynor or Jalen Withers, obviously, for that spot. So I think that at this time, I'd say I don't see there being a spot of that right now. But if he were to have a good stretch over the next 5 games or so, who knows? He may be implemented into the starting lineup. Do you see a win left on the Louisville schedule? If so, who would it be? So looking at the remainder of the schedule, there's what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 regular season games. Obviously, there's an ACC tournament game as well. There's a couple ranked teams, Miami, Virginia twice, Clemson. You have a game against Duke. I think, there's 2 games against Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech is 8-11. In the ACC, they're right ahead of the Cardinals. They are 1-8. So that's an opportunity. There's a couple games. Georgia Tech's 1-8. You've got 2 more games with them, a home and home. You're at Notre Dame. Notre Dame is 1-7, I believe. Virginia Tech is also to be played. You'll play them at home. So I think that there's possibly opportunities if Louisville comes to play. Those are the 4 to look at. The 3 that are or the 4 games, the 3 opponents that are immediately ahead of Louisville in the schedule, or in the standings, I should say: Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech, and Notre Dame. So continuing on, there's been a lot of talk. You even tweeted out about Gabe Sisk from Ballard. Is he for sure Louisville level? And why do you think he is? I'm actually planning on having a segment later on in the week about Gabe Sisk. I think he's Louisville level. I've watched him play the past 4 years. Obviously, I announced for Mail. So there's been some very, very solid matchups between Mail and Ballard. Every game that I've gone to watching Gabe Sisk, he's had some very, very solid performances. So I think that Sisk is Louisville level. He's a 6'6" combo guard, not overly athletic, doesn't have a ton of speed, laterally, but he's extremely strong for his size. 6'6", can handle the basketball, shoot from anywhere inside the half court, 3-level scorer, solid body control around the rim, does a good job of getting to the basket and finishing around the rim. Solid rebounder, willingness to rebound, solid on-ball defender. He also just makes winning basketball plays, a very cohesive basketball player, does a good job making the extra pass, even if it doesn't show up in the stat sheet. Overall, very, very unselfish facilitator, being sort of he went from being a traditional 2 guard to now sort of a combo guard that can be a secondary or tertiary ball handler if you need it. And we see this season for Louisville that sometimes you can have all the ball, or you need all the ball carriers or ball handlers, not ball carriers, ball handlers that you can get. So, moving right on along, well, I'm going to go ahead and answer this question for probably the last time. Is Kenny Payne getting a second year? I don't know. I won't know today on January 23rd. I won't know the last game of the regular season unless something happens. I think that's for Josh Hurt and company to decide. If you're asking me if I think he'll be back, I think he'll be back. No inside information. This is just kind of an intuition, gut feeling type thing. I think they're going to give him an offseason with no NCAA cloud to try to get some players from the transfer portal and completely overhaul this roster because it definitely needs it. In terms of the coaching and things of that nature, I think that obviously I think that this staff is going to have to continue to learn. They're going to have to continue to get better on an X's and O's level. But as of right now, I think, will he get a second year? I think so at the end of the day. I have no inside information, so truly I don't know. Moving on into the final question. How do you think that Louisville needs to approach the transfer portal numbers-wise? You have what? Is there 13 scholarships? Is that how many scholarships you get at the Power 5 level? Is it 13? I do probably need to look that up. I think that, you're going to have a lot of roster turnover. I think that Ellis will probably go to the NBA draft or, look to enter his name into the NBA draft. I only think maybe 2-3 players are going to be back. Maybe some of the younger guys. If they're not going to the transfer portal, they're probably going to the draft. So you're probably going to have a couple players return. I'd say, let's say 3 to 4 players. You have 2 guys committed now, Caleb Glenn and Curtis Williams. So that's 5 to 6. So then that leaves you 7 spots, and I think you legitimately have to use all of those spots. You have to use all of them. I'm not sure if there's a scholarship loss from the NCAA ruling or the IARP ruling. There might possibly be. If so, I guess you'll implement it then or possibly this year. But you need about 5, 6, 7 ready players. Guys that have started at a pass level, guys that have scored in double figures. You have to go get primary scorers. You have to go get ball handlers. You have to go get, complementary pieces. This is going to be no easy task for Kenny Payne and company. Like, they are going to have an absolutely, elite transfer portal class. They're going to have to go in and they're going to have to go get about 4 to 5 guys that can play significant minutes because, look, there's a chance that you're going ahead and getting a whole new starting 5 for next year. And then you're going to have to fill out the bench. Maybe you have a couple guys returning from last year that maybe would slide into a starting role, but possibly not. Maybe they slide it into the bench roles. Maybe Caleb Glenn or Curtis Williams slides into that role. But I think you're going to have to go get 5, 6, 7 players that have played at the college level that have looked solid. And that, like I said, it's a tall task for Kenny Payne and company. But that's going to wrap up this Monday edition of the show. Everyone have a great day. We'll see you right back here tomorrow.